Hi, my name is Bianca and I'm glad to present my PhD project to increase women participation in open source. Even being 24% of software developers, women represent less than 10% of open source contributors. Only a few women join and they disengage sooner than men, although their activity levels are comparable to men's. So, what's happening? Why are women not joining and not staying? Stages 1 and 2 of my research methodology are complete, and the 3 and 4 are now happening in parallel. I'm going to explain each stage now. The goal of the stage 1 was to explore the human factors that influence and act behind the decisions to participate or not in open source projects. We started by qualitatively analyzing 17 interviews done with successful contributors who were speakers at the open source conference. We analyzed the story they told about their career journeys and built a unified diagram of career pathways in open source, with the different start points, types of contributions, and roles since the beginning of their career until the position they are now. We used the boxes to represent the role name and the colors to represent the relation of each role with open source, while being not related to open source, only open source consuming, or open source contributor. People can build a career in open source through different roles and activities with different background, including those not related to writing software. Then, we wanted to understand the current motivations that open source contributors have to join and to continue contributing. We consolidated the more cited studies of motivations in open source into a survey questionnaire that was answered by 224 contributors. And through qualitative and quantitative analysis, we found how the motivation shifted from 20 years ago and how does it shift after becoming a contributor. Learning, fun, altruism, kinship, and reciprocity are the current top motivations, more cited as relevant by the overall set of respondents. After the first study, I started to think, well, successful contributors, what makes them being successful? Do they feel successful? We interviewed 27 contributors and received 193 answers to a survey about what means success in open source. Then qualitatively analyzed their definitions and proposed an open source success model. I found that success is a dynamic, multifaceted, and complex concept, including both objective metrics and subjective perceptions of accomplishment, and can help to predict what are the contributors seeking for their future. For example, money can represent multiple meanings of success. Security when it's related to making a living from open source, and advancement when can be related to a career growth as a salary increase. I've started the stage 2 with a systematic mapping study to investigate what is the literature reporting about women's participation in open source. The search protocol included database search, backward and forward snowballing, and contact with the most prolific authors. I have employed both quantitative and qualitative analysis during the data extraction and explained women participation by showing how represented are women in open source, the demographic of women who participate, what types of contributions are women doing, to what extent are their contributions being accepted by projects, what motivates women to participate, what challenges do they face, and what strategies have been proposed to increase women participation. According to the 51 selected primary studies, women represent about 9.8% of open source software contributors, considering different types of participation. The majority of women who contribute to open source projects for less than 5 years, devoting less than 1 work day to open source on few repositories, and are at least undergraduate students. While being present more in community-centric roles, women are low represented as author of pull requests and also low represented as core developers, mostly making non-code contributions. When submitting a pull request, women have high rates of merge acceptance and lower when they explicitly identify themselves as a woman. Reciprocity, kinship, and getting paid motivates more women than men. Altruism, learning, and own use motivate both men and women, while career and reputation are low ranked for both genders. When contributing, Women face social challenges such as lack of peer parity, non-inclusive communication, toxic culture, imposter syndrome, community reception issues, stereotyping, and work-life balance issues. Open source communities can seek to increase women participation by mitigating those challenges and providing awareness about the presence of other women, promoting inclusive language, organizing women-specific groups and events, de-stereotyping the open source contributor, encouraging and welcoming women, placing women in leadership, adopting debiasing tools, recognizing women's achievement, preparing mentors to guide women, and creating, but also enforcing, a code of conduct. During the stage 3, I will run a study in IT universities from different countries to understand why people are not joining open source. I'm interested on filling the survival bias gap that is very cited in open source studies that are handled with current contributors, as I'm going to investigate the reason to not join open source. During the stage 4, I will run a study in Linux kernel, which had already started. Besides including the sense of belonging, I will investigate how the factors explored in stage 1 happen in a single and large community. Moreover, during this stage, I'm also interested in another part of gap of the survival bias, as I'm going to investigate why are women leaving open source. So those are the publications I've got so far during the 2 years of my PhD. The strategies to attract and retain women will be based on fostering their motivations to join and stay in orange, reducing or mitigating their challenges in red, supporting their perceptions of success in green, and avoiding them to leave to have this success somewhere else. Also providing options of career pathways for them to follow. My contributions will support women, helping them to have more job opportunities in open source, practice as open source teams need more diversity to be productive, educators who can approach the challenges being faced by women in classroom with students to improve awareness and discuss possible mitigation actions. And finally, for researchers, as the framework of human factors I'm proposing can be generalized to attract and retain other populations besides women to other domains besides open source. In the end of the day, we are all people. I am completing the second year of my PhD now, and I am in a perfect moment to receive all your feedback and start making the method mature for my candidacy exam that will happen in April next year. Thank you.